This is Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer, and I'm inviting everyone to join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on the Kickin Lawyer fan page on Facebook for Law Talk Live, where we discuss business, politics, current events, and the law. If you miss the live version, you can watch the playback on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast platform. All right, it's Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer, and we're live for another Law Talk. Hope everybody's having a good day, good week. We missed you last week because I was out of town visiting my son in San Diego, who's serving us on the USS Carl Vinson. I want to remind you, if you haven't already, to please like and follow, subscribe to the content, share, all that wonderful good stuff. It really helps us out. Lets other people maybe benefit from it. We're also on TikTok. We probably need to mix those two. What do you think, Josh?
I think I need to move the new capture thing lower so I can get us rolling.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, there it is.
All right, yeah. It was already up.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't on the feed, though. I had to do some finagling with the camera.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we'll skip TikTok. So NA the band has an album out. You can go to anywhere you download your music. It is free. So help those guys out. They're both local guys. They run Liberty Guitar and Gear here in Covington, and they have an album, Inside My Head. It's available Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. Michelle Allen's a longtime sponsor of our show. She's your go-to in the area for buying, selling, renting, leasing real estate, and she's also a genuinely good person. If you visit the cellar, you can see her a lot. She's a good regular patron there. High Octane Martial Arts in Covington's been around since '93. You want to become a black belt or train yourself, we'd be glad to have you. Just visit masonsmartialarts.com. And the Cellar Restaurant and Prohibition Bar, I will be there as soon as I'm done here doing the trivia tonight. We got Mother's Day stuff coming up. There's prime rib as a special this weekend, so make sure you check us out. We're open every day at 4 p.m., and we have a newly renovated patio. And then last but not least, Josh will be glad to help you with your online branding, marketing, social media, website stuff. Just visit masonitemarketing.com. So, all that out of the way, I got joining me today, my guest is Mr. Brandon Fletcher. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good. I know are you a full-time firefighter, active firefighter? I know you're big into firefighting, like you're like an instructor and all kinds of stuff in it, right?
Yes, sir. So I'm the fire chief at the Gilt Edge Fire Department. That's an all-volunteer department on the western.
So I need to call you
county.
Chief then.
No, you don't. Yeah. Call me Brandon. It's fine. But I do some instructing and everything on the side. I've worked full-time in the past at several different departments. But now I've been fortunate enough to be able to kind of branch out, and I do a lot of my own instructing with regards to leadership, some stuff specific to volunteer fire departments. And then I'm a hazmat instructor for the Center for Domestic Preparedness in Anniston, Alabama.
Sweet. So I always assume you're a young guy because I know your wife. Well, she's a young lady. You may be like me, though, maybe an old guy with a young lady.
That's probably a good assessment there. Yeah.
So what got you into the firefighting thing?
So I'm a second-generation firefighter. My dad was one of the original members there in Gilt Edge. One of the founding members in 1986 when they formed the fire department. And so I pretty much grew up, in the firehouse to a degree, especially, in my definitely younger years, by teenager, you're out rambling around doing whatever. But spent a lot of time in the firehouse. It was just kind of one of those things that, I knew I was going to try, at some point. And so when I turned 18, joined the volunteer fire department there in Gilt Edge, and I've been fortunate to work in several different places around West Tennessee on the career side, and really, dove into a lot of things kind of just nationally within the fire service. I have a running joke with a good buddy of mine in New Jersey, join the fire service, see the world, because that's kind of how it's worked out for me. I end up all over the country at different points of the year. So.
Yeah, that's cool. So if you've done it that long, I'm curious because I have my own observations on like law enforcement with this, but by doing something for a minute. But what do you think have been major changes, and it could be pro or cons in firefighting?
Gosh, just in the time that I've joined, our personal protective equipment is totally different. I think collectively, as a nation, that we've done great improvements in fire prevention, but even locally, we don't go to as many structure fires as we used to when I first joined. And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, firefighter wants to fight fire. But going to less structure fires is a good thing because that means less people, are having house fires. And I think a lot of that is, through different codes, code enforcement, different regulations with appliances and housing, and then, trying to spread the fire prevention message as well, to for folks to make good decisions.
Yeah. What about EMS stuff?
Oh gosh, that has changed immensely.
My perspective as a cop, I remember. So when I went to the police academy, it was 2001 or two. 2001 or two. I went to the state Nashville Academy, right? And I remember there were a couple of departments there. I want to say one was. If I went through the area there on 40, I would remember it. But they weren't far from Nashville. There were a couple of departments that they were called public safety officers.
Yes, sir.
And they were EMS, fire, and police all together. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I remember thinking that just blew my mind that it was set up that way. But then even coming back home, I remember that it seemed that cops were doing more EMS work than they were firefighting even. I mean, firefighters were doing more EMS work than they were firefighting. What's your observation on that?
So absolutely. So there are very few fire departments in the country that are not running EMS in some capacity. Not everyone transports. So you have what's called a first responder EMS service. That's what you see here in Tipton County with all the departments that run EMS. And so anytime an ambulance is called, you'll get a fire truck and firefighters responding with that, usually because they can get there before the ambulance, stabilize the patient, and then have them ready for transport. But it's interesting you bring up that public safety officer concept, because that is a very controversial topic
really?
In the emergency services world, because a lot of police officers they joined to be police officers, they didn't join to be firefighters, and a lot of firefighters they joined to be firefighters, they didn't join to be police officers. And there are some out there, generally in city government management, that well, if I can just combine the two, I can save money, and it's pretty much failed in most places that it's been tried. That probably when you were going through the police academy, that was kind of the heyday of the PSO concept. I mean, it's still out there. There's still places that do it, but a lot of places were trying it. It was the new great thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of those places don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, you think about it. So, you're a police officer, you're geared up, you're doing your police officer role, and all of a sudden a fire comes out, and so now you race to the fire. At least, I will make the comment that, if a police officer is a public safety officer trained to be a firefighter, they probably won't park their police car in front of the fire hydrant, and they probably won't block the driveway.
So, yeah.
But so they race to it. So then now what do? So you got to strip off your gun belt, your body armor, all that stuff. You stow that in the trunk. Now you got to get dressed. Now you're waiting on a fire truck to show up. I mean, it just doesn't work. But on the EMS side, I think nationally, about 80% of the fire department's responses are EMS related.
Yeah.
Locally, in Gilt Edge particularly, we were probably closer to about 70, maybe in the high 60s, and that's pretty consistent across the county. So yes, your fire departments do run a lot more EMS than they do fire these days.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I was thinking through as you were talking about that, because I get your position on the public safety officer, and I don't know that I really ever thought about it to come to a position on it. I know, speaking as a cop, 'cause that's what I did for 12 years. Like, I didn't want to do, kind of like you say, I didn't want to do the EMS stuff. Now, sometimes just by the nature of the job, sometimes the task mix a little bit. Like, I remember running into me and a deputy named, I think he's narcotics now, Brandon Williams. We ran into a burning building one time because the people came out, fire wasn't there yet. This was in Brighton. And they said there was a kid inside. And we didn't hesitate. We both ran in there, and then I immediately had a new respect for firefighters, because as soon as this was fully engulfed, and as soon as we broke the threshold of the door, I was immediately lost, like so disoriented. And we both had to, luckily we managed to kind of turn, and I think he might have even pulled me out. But anyway, we couldn't function in the environment, and like I always assumed, oh, it's hot, but the smoke's going to be up high, like you see in a movie.
Like, it was nice and
it was not like that. So anyway, that was a new experience. But anyway, my point was, I didn't want to firefight, and the limited times I did any EMS stuff, did not enjoy it. And to be honest, the limited post-traumatic issues that I may still deal with from the job were really from being hands-on on the medical side.
Sure.
I feel like that personally when I had to touch them to do any kind of like CPR or something like that, for some reason that made it more, I don't know, real or connected.
Sure. No,
And there's one incident in particular that I still struggle with, I have nightmares about, that involved a little kid that I did CPR on. But normally when we would show up, oh, he's bleeding out, you better put some pressure on that, because we're waiting on EMS.
Well, I'll tell you on our end, the situations where, like for a CPR call, where we see, the best chance of survival, is obviously with early CPR. And so I'll use that to plug, if you got the opportunity to take a CPR class, take a CPR class. The fact that our dispatch here locally can give CPR instructions over the phone, that was something that he could not do previously.
Yeah.
Very controversial topic, during that time frame. But now they can do that. And every person that we've been able to ever shock and get back, that I can recall, a deputy was involved in getting there first and either taking over that CPR for the family member or initiating that CPR until we could get there, with the other advanced life-saving equipment. So, law enforcement probably in most places doesn't get the credit that it deserves with regard to their role in the EMS. But when it comes to somebody that's not breathing and needs CPR, whoever can get there first and start that, because the CPR is not what brings them back. Okay, the cardiac drugs, the defibrillation, that's what brings the patients back. The CPR buys time.
Yeah.
Okay, and time is, when they talk about strokes, they talk about time as brain. Okay, so the longer you're without oxygen to the brain, the less your chance of coming back from that is, and so the CPR keeps that, keeps that going. So, law enforcement. Out where we are, we don't have a police department in Gilt Edge. It's the sheriff's office that protects out there. And so when the deputies get there and they start that CPR, that's a huge, huge game changer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I don't remember what the policy was on it when I was there. I remember it was almost, I don't know that there really even was a policy. The rule was if you put hands on them, you were responsible then. So a lot of times we would try to secure the scene and protect whatever was going on, make sure it's safe for the other first responders to show up. But I agree that I think that, all the first responders, man, I think are under, people, first responders, and maybe not, this may not be so much for you. This is a whole cop firefighter thing when I was a cop. So we always joked with firefighters that you guys always had clean cars, because you're just sitting there and what else you going to do, clean your car, right? Yeah. And I know there's plenty of jokes on us too about donuts and other stuff. But, there was a running almost like rivalry between the two. But part of it was, if throughout at least the last 30 years or so, cops tend to get a bad rap.
Sure.
Firefighters usually don't.
Right.
Y'all are usually the white horse, white hat guys, and the cops, unless you need them, people are kind of fussing about them. So I don't know. I think that's a difference in personalities too.
Well, the way I always explain it too. That's another reason why I was a huge PSO fan, right? From my perspective, everybody loves a fireman.
Yeah, yeah.
When we show up, I mean, the goal is to make the day better.
Yeah.
And whatever the problem, we're problem solvers. They call us not just for fires. They call us for everything. I got a broken water line. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to show up. We're going to try to fix it. We're going to do what we can do. And so there is that. And I think we're lucky here. In Tipton County for the most part. I think there is a lot of support for law enforcement.
Yeah, I agree.
And with that too, I'll even go as far as this is my 23rd year with the Gilt Edge Fire Department, and the relationship that we've had with our sheriff's office during that time has just, to me, has always been stellar. There's never been conflict or on scene rivalry or anything like that, and it's not like that everywhere you go.
Yeah, that's true.
There are some places, especially some larger cities, where they're competing for the same pot of funding, just the historical, good-natured fun. Now, we'll laugh and joke and we'll cut up, but it's all in good fun. It's all in laughs and smiles and everything. But there are places where it is not that way. And so we're very fortunate to have the relationship with not just the sheriff's office, but with the highway patrol as well, because that's who we see most out in our area.
Well, I always liked seeing any other first responders, whether it was fire or EMS, show up on most scenes, because, a lot of times we would be there sometimes first, but it's because you're coming from like a central location where the truck is housed, and we're mobile.
Exactly.
So a lot of times I say I'm not one anymore. So the deputies are mobile and can get wherever they're going. So, but I think it's an important relationship to have, and it's just like it's very similar to what I do in law. You know, in law, my opponent is the prosecutor, as I do mostly criminal defense. So my opponent's the prosecutor, and Josh and I have done videos on this recently. A lot of people have this perspective that they don't want. I used to have this perspective too. They think you don't want a local lawyer because that local lawyer is in bed with the prosecutor, or whatever. So it's like scratching each other's back. But what I've said recently is I always recommend local counsel because of the relationship they have with everybody, not just the DA, but the clerks, the judge, everybody. And my point is like that relationship is very important to get things done efficiently, but in some ways it can help the client.
Sure.
I've never had, I probably never is not a good term, but I can't remember anyway, a time when my positive relationship with like the district attorneys was a negative for the client.
Right.
And so similarly, I think in first responders, it's very important that they be able to get along and communicate with each other. Talking about that, last night I went to, my son is on the high school soccer team here, CHS, Go Chargers. And we went to Huntington. Yeah. It's about an hour and a half away-ish, right? Real nice area. It took a minute to get there. Anyway, they play soccer over there. So we're sitting there and we're playing, and the other team parents were real vocal. They were yelling at the refs the whole time, and our team ended up winning. They were ahead by like 4 goals, and then the other team just came back, so it was like 4-3. It was kind of tight at the end. Anyway, next thing you know, before the end, one of the parents is screaming at this ref who called like a offside call or something on the other team. I don't really even know the soccer rules. When I was a kid, you were communist if you played soccer. So.
Same here.
Okay.
I don't really understand it either.
Yeah. So anyway, they're arguing, and next thing you know, the ref is running across the thing and like trying to eject a parent, and then that parent starts yelling at the coach of their team like, "Don't worry about it, coach. Me and that ref got beef. We got beef. He just wants me out of here." And it's just another example of where it would probably be better for those parents to have a better relationship with the referees locally for their kids than to have beef with them. So,
Sure.
Yeah, long story short, man, I agree. I think we should all get along. And it's good locally that I think there are good relationships with the first responders. You guys have a good relationship, I guess, with the ambulance services too.
Most days.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, on a side note, Josh,
Yeah.
Lisa Keith is the sponsor tonight for the podcast, and I forgot I was supposed to go out to her place to pick up the prizes.
You mean for the trivia?
Yeah. Would you do me a favor and let see if one of the girls would go pick them up for me? I got busy and completely forgot.
Yeah,
that I was
let
supposed to
me
get them.
run up there. You keep talking for a minute because I'm not going to be here to switch cameras for a second.
Well, we'll both talk, and I'll let him. They
There
can
you
just
go.
listen, and I'll smile. So we're talking about positives, which is great, right? But what is something that you think people should weigh as far as like things you would like to see change, like positive policies that need to go into effect to help you do your job better?
Well, funding is always a struggle for all public safety agencies and probably everybody. But that's probably one of the biggest things locally is funding, and then on the volunteer side, the recruitment and retention of volunteers. We simply we don't have people beating down the doors to be a volunteer firefighter. Never have in this area. There are parts of the country where there are waiting lists to join the volunteer fire department, usually because that department might be 100+ years old. It's ingrained in the culture. That's kind of just what you did. You joined the fire department. And we just don't have that in this area. And so most of our departments that rely 100% on volunteers are struggling for membership.
What do you think that is?
Well, and so there's a lot of theories on it, and I teach a little bit, with regarding strategies to kind of modernize your volunteer fire department. People are busy. People are way busier than they were, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, so on and so forth. So with that, there's kind of that fear of that time commitment, because it is a time commitment. One of the things that's progressed, kind of going back to one of those first questions, things that changed, is your fire department does more now than it ever did. When the Gilt Edge Fire Department started in 1986, it was because you couldn't get homeowners insurance in the area. If you look at a lot of the all-volunteer fire departments outside of a municipality or outside of a population center in Tennessee, you'll see a lot of them with start dates in the early 80s, mid 80s, kind of in that same time frame, because it was about that time that, insurance companies said, hey, we're not going to insure your property if you don't have fire protection. And so you started founding fire departments with just bare bones, bare minimums, minimum training, just good people that wanted to help. How successful were they going to be at helping? It varied. And from there we added the EMS mission. Okay, so now we go from, maybe you would get called out 20, 30 times a year to, this last month, in Gilt Edge we did 45 runs, which, by comparison, if you, looked at Covington, they do obviously way more than that, but they have a lot more people there. But, when you look at that, it's 45 times that the tones went off, that volunteers in some capacity dropped what they were doing to go and help someone else in need. And that does start to weigh on you. 587, I think, is what we did last year. 587 times. There's only 365 days in a year, and so you start looking at, we've had EMS to it. Well, now we've recognized the importance of public education. So now we're trying to get out there. We're trying to educate the public, pass out smoke alarms, put up address signs, speak to church and civic groups about fire safety and prevention. Now we're expected, to be able to have a plan for any kind of hazmat, any kind of technical rescue. Like we are, if it's not a law enforcement criminal matter, your fire department is your go-to to solve the problem. And so with that, to be competent at that, we have to train. So the time requirement, 30 years ago, hey, I want to join the fire department. All right, hey, here's a pager, here's some gear, you'll figure it out. We'll show you.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore, and so now, we got to put you through a basic training academy so you're not a danger to yourself and others, and you can actually help. We have to train you in medical. We have to train you in hazmat. We have to train you in some, form of technical rescue. And so with that, that's a huge commitment.
Do they have to live in Gilt Edge to volunteer for you guys?
No. So at one time, you had to live within the district. As we've kind of progressed forward, we've expanded that a little bit. We really loosened it up because, we have some really good news in Gilt Edge, because yesterday was the official start date of construction of a new annex building that will, provide us with a bunk room, offices, day room, kitchen facilities, what you would see at like a full-time career fire station.
Yeah.
And so what that allows folks to do is maybe folks that live a little further away, that, if they join, would get kind of frustrated, not feel like they're making a difference, because by the time they got to the station, the folks that live closer have responded to the call, and it's like, why am I doing this? Well, this gives them an opportunity now to basically, we can pull some duty shifts. We can have a staffing program, which is what a lot of successful volunteer fire departments have done to be able to stay relevant as a volunteer fire department, is to be able to provide that level of service where, hey, we have people here, maybe 24/7, maybe, certain times of the day. That's one thing that you have to look at. Or eventually you're going to hit a point where you're not going to have a volunteer fire department anymore. You're not going to be able to sustain that. And then, it opens up a whole host of questions. Then what do you do? Because chances are, not always, but around here, if you're running a volunteer fire department, it's because the local municipality or local government can't afford to have a full-time career fire department. And so then what? When you have no more volunteers to answer the call, what do you do then? And you can't afford, fire protection, in a full-time paid capacity, and so it becomes a very, very, very complicated situation, to try to find solutions. And so what I try to do is when I travel the country and I meet with volunteer fire departments, I start first and foremost with the leadership aspect of it. You have to have quality leadership within the organization. That's true of any organization.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right? In a paid organization, folks are there because they got to get a check, they got to pay the bills. All right, doesn't mean they're going to stay there. Okay, if they're unhappy and you don't treat them right, all right, they'll eventually go somewhere else. But now flip that over to a volunteer perspective. Your volunteers are there because they want to be. not because they have to be. They're there because it's fun. They get some kind of fulfillment, whatever that is. It's going to vary from person to person, but they're there because they want to be, not because they have to be. And so you have to be able to provide purpose, direction, and motivation to those individuals to bring them together collectively as a team, and without the incentive of a paycheck. Mm-hmm. And that is a true challenge. And so, leadership is critical in all organizations, but it becomes especially critical in that volunteer organization. You got to have a vision. You got to have a plan. All right, you got to be, how are we going to put this all together? How are we going to get where we want to be in 5 years? Are we even looking 5 years down the road to try to tackle the challenges that we're going to see at that point? Or are we just trying to react day to day? And there's a lot of places out here that are just trying to react day to day, and they're hurting.
Yeah. Well, man, it sounds like you definitely know what you're talking about on all this. I think Gilt Edge is lucky to have you. I was going to ask you this on the volunteers. So I started as a cop as a volunteer. I was a reserve. I started that, and the reason that I did it was I did have an interest for community service, and I originally was going to do military, but when my girlfriend at the time, eventually wife, got pregnant, I decided to stay here, right? So build a family, and I felt like that I didn't want to drag them through military life, so how else could I do some community service type stuff? And so law enforcement was something I had in my family. My grandfather had done it. So anyway, it was interesting. It was something I was interested in at an early age, and not necessarily something that I immediately thought I would do full time. I looked at it more as it was an opportunity for community service. So saying that, do you guys do any outreach with like some of the high school seniors and stuff to show them that age group? I feel like your prime age, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but if you could get them, and is there an age? Like, is it like cops really need to be 21 because
Sure.
a lot of what they do? But what's the age to be a volunteer firefighter?
So for us, our insurance company will allow us to bring someone on at 17 as a junior, obviously with some restrictions.
Sure.
With regard to training. They can't run calls yet, but they can start getting that training knocked out. And then at 18, then they can be a full-fledged, probationary
And wouldn't that
firefighter.
be good prep for them if they did want to make a full career, like as a full-time firefighter?
Absolutely.
It's a good starting point, I would think.
A huge percentage of our volunteers in Gilt Edge have gone on to career positions. I have folks that work at Ripley Fire Department. I have folks in Piperton Fire Department, Arlington Fire Department. I'm sure I probably forgot somebody, and they'll probably let me know.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's a good statement though for you and your leadership ability too, though, Brandon. That you could help. I always think that I've seen it in here as a lawyer and in my martial arts business, where you have a student or instructor that gets to a certain level, or like a lawyer here that gets to a level, and then they go to do something that's not with you. So you don't directly benefit from it. But I feel like a good sign of a leader is somebody that can build someone up to where they can sort of stand on their own, and do things.
So it is a huge benefit if your volunteers can join career departments. But it's like anything else, it's a double-edged sword. Okay, so hopefully they go to a career fire department that also sees the benefit of them continuing to be volunteer. Because now, we can send them to training that's mutually beneficial. They can send them to training that's mutually beneficial. It's a win-win for everybody. But one thing that does happen, and it's not 100%, it's not every single case, but what does happen from time to time is, you started off as a volunteer and you get that paid firefighting job, and so now you think you've hit the big time. Now you're better, than the volunteers, or, you've reached some pinnacle above being, a volunteer. Or, maybe it's not even that mindset at all, but now what you used to do for fun is what you do for pay. And so now maybe it's not as fun to go
Well,
and do it,
that's true. That happened
free.
with, in law enforcement for sure. I can remember when I was initially a reserve, it was cool to just put the uniform on, like that was exciting. And then after you've done it for a little bit as a job, it's a job.
Right.
And then you're like, it's not that big a deal anymore. So I think you're right. But I think you could find, because, growing up, and this may be because I'm old, but as I was growing up, cops and firefighters were cool. At least the firefighters were always cool.
Sure.
You got to be a firefighter. And I would think that there's still some of that mystique there for some of these teenagers. And if you could take them at 17, I think it'd be a great opportunity for some of these young guys. Plus, maybe it does give them some training on a profession that they could move into that they didn't even realize was an opportunity for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are places that do that go to the career fairs and career days and everything.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to add to our public outreach that we currently do. We've been so focused on, the fire prevention and public education side of things, which is a taxing mission itself.
Sure.
That,
Time is limited, and y'all are
Exactly.
volunteers.
We
so-
haven't really jumped in on that, and we don't have a high school in our first due. Our closest high school would be Brighton, and then followed by Munford. But it absolutely would be viable for not just us, but all of the fire departments, paid and volunteer, in which all of our paid departments in the county are really combination departments. They still have volunteers or reserves, whatever they call them, to get into the schools and really, to put it out there that, like, hey, this is an option. Like, you can do this for, a career, or you can do this to give back to the community. What would be really beneficial is if somehow we could ever get a fire science program into the school system here in the county. There are a few places that have managed to do that, and that is a huge win because, if you have it at each school, or you have it centrally located where all the students can participate, you potentially have students from all over the county participating in that, with the opportunity to join, the fire department, whether it's paid or volunteer, wherever they live, in the county. But, like a lot of things, it's logistical, costs money. It's not just as simple as, hey, we're going to teach a fire school, at the high school. There's a lot more that goes into it than just that. But that would be a huge benefit, something locally that could really, I think, definitely impact in a positive direction the different departments that are in the county.
Is most of your funding county funding?
Yes. So, yes and no. So we are a municipal volunteer department, which is not uncommon in Tennessee, but it is kind of a unique animal in a lot of places around the country. So, you have 11 fire departments within the county. Of the all volunteer departments, us, Garland, and Mason are municipal fire departments. We're not a private entity with its own private board of directors. So, like Charleston, Quito, and Three Star would all be private 501c3 organizations. They have a board of directors, which is actually kind of probably the most common form of volunteer fire department across the country. And so, we're a municipal department that the bulk of the funding does come from the city of Gilt Edge, but we do receive a sizable amount of funding from Tipton County, a little bit of funding from the town of Burleson, and we provide fire protection for its 42 square miles. So that includes the city of Gilt Edge, the city of Burleson, and then the unincorporated area that surrounds those two communities. So for a total of 42 square miles, about a little over 4,100 people that live in that area.
And you guys have your own trucks and stuff?
We do, yes. They're all owned by the city of Gilt Edge.
So if you had because I get that your time was limited and you focused primarily on the training and all that stuff, which I think is important in fire prevention. But if you had $500,000, let's say they just gave it to you, where would you spend it?
Well, $500,000 would not go nearly as far as you think it would.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to think, what would a fire truck cost? And I was
more than $500,000.
oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Dang, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so our engines or pumpers now, you can easily spend $1 million, but you're probably looking to $700,000 to $800,000.
God, I had no
For an
idea.
engine. We used to say a ladder truck, was $1 million. Now you can drop $1.5 to $2 million on a ladder truck easy.
Yeah.
$500,000. I could get a really nice tanker for $500,000. That's what we shuttle our water with.
Yeah.
But yeah, so $500,000. Gosh, what would I spend that on? We're really good at writing grants in Gilt Edge. So equipment wise, we're in really, really, really good shape. Vehicle grants are hard to come by, so it probably would with the new building being built, for us money wise, vehicle upgrades and improvements would probably be where we would go. But like I say, with $500,000, that would just be a down payment.
Yeah, dang, I didn't have any idea they were that expensive. I was thinking $300,000.
So when we first So when you would have entered law enforcement about the same time I entered the fire service, yes, $300,000 would have bought you a very, very nice.
So I'm
bumper.
just out of date.
It just goes up every year.
I did want to tell you, Michelle Allen apparently has been watching. She said that if you're ever out of town and your smoke detector goes nuts, Brandon will show up and take care of in your absence.
True story. True story.
Yeah, she said would be great if could equip police cars with the AED, and she said how are volunteer fire departments funded, which we just talked about.
Sure. So the county provides money to all of the to all the fire departments within the county. And it used to be just kind of a set amount across the board. Now it kind of varies based on a multitude of things.
Yeah, I'm sort of familiar with how some of that works, and sort of it's with the chamber how I've sort of come to understand how that's done.
So obviously your paid fire departments, they get a little bit more money because they got a little more overhead to cover. But then, sometimes it varied depending on did you have two stations? Because at one time you had Quito Drummond's fire department, it was two stations. So because they had two stations, technically two districts, they got twice as much. When things happened in Mason a few years ago, and Charleston and Three Star took over the Mason County territory, I think they split the Mason contribution between the two departments. So it's not as cut and dry as it once was. But what was her other question besides the funding there?
She was saying it would be great if we could equip police cars with the AED, which is a comment when she made all these earlier and I didn't notice them till now. So she was talking about when we were talking about cops.
No, absolutely. That would be a good thing. There are places that do that where the police officers have AED in the in the back of the patrol car.
I'm going to ask you a question that's just because I'm curious based on evolving. When I was a deputy, which was from 2002 to 2012, maybe. Is that 10 years? That's 10 years.
10 years. So
there was a year on either side I was a reserve because it was 12 years total. Anyway, during that time period, I remember one of the issues we had was radios. And the radio would go out. If we were out around where you guys were, sometimes it was rough. And then if you dropped below the bluff, you switched. It was channel 2 to the bluff repeater. And I just wondered if when I left, they were starting to switch over to some digital version of the radios. I just wondered if they're any better or if it's still terrible.
They're better. There's still room for improvement.
Okay.
But yeah, you're taking me back there with the the old bluff repeater.
Yeah.
That was so that system. Now there's to my knowledge, the bluff repeater. I don't think it's still active. Everything. So the fire departments are still paged on the old analog system.
Okay.
And so the golf ball, as we call it, the water tower there in Munford, has got your analog paging system on it. And in a pinch, provided we could hit the repeater. We kept all of our old analog radios just because, the transition over to the digital system was a slow process. It was kind of like, hey, we're doing this, figure out what you're going to do to buy these new radios. Oh, okay, nice, And so, that was, that's a big budget hit.
Yeah.
And without getting into, how that was handled and maybe how it could have been handled better, I think we're looking probably in the next 3 to 4 years, maybe 5, to upgrade again. I know we have a new dispatch director, and that's definitely one of his key points that he's wanting to upgrade our system because, honestly, our system is not a public safety system. Okay? Now, the downside of that, when you upgrade to a public safety system, you're looking at going from, the little handheld radios that the deputies carry, that we carry, we all carry the same radio, that when we were first integrating into the system, cost $800, $900 a piece. I think the price is up to like 11 or 12 now. But when they upgrade to this public safety system, you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000 or more just for a handheld radio. So how are we going to fit that bill with 11 fire departments and how many law enforcement agencies? How many handheld radios are we talking about? Across the board between every law enforcement, every police, every firefighter, ambulance. Then you got to have the vehicle radios. But there are grants out there, and I think that I think the new dispatch director is on point with this, and I think the transition to this will be a lot better than the transition was to the current digital system that we have.
Well, I think all these components, especially on the budgeting, is important to talk about because I know a lot of times the community, fire is, like I said, similar with cops, where until they need you, they don't. It just is not an issue they're thinking about, and so they don't think about how good communication is important for you to be able to serve them better. And so when it comes to budgeting issues, and like if there's a tax hike on this, that, or the other, people want one thing but don't realize they're going to have to pay for that thing some other way. And so I think it's important for people to understand those nuances. Just like me, I had no idea a fire truck was that expensive now.
Well, and so on that, I mean, I'll segue into it. I'm a fan of a county fire tax.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything with a tax is a very controversial subject. There's lots of different tiers that you can go about it. It's a process like anything else. It's a little easier in other states, but in Tennessee it is a little bit of a process. And sometimes as firefighters, we're our own worst enemy when it comes to that, because we are going to go all out to try to solve your problem. Whether I have 2 people show up or I have 20 people show up, we're going to bust our tail. And we have done some very impressive things sometimes with 2 or 3 people, that makes us look like rock stars. But then on the flip side of that, when you go and argue and say, well, we actually need this number of people. Well, wait a minute, y'all made an awesome stop on that house with just a couple of guys.
Yeah.
And that's, like we broke a whole lot of OSHA rules and regulations and policies because we're not going to let your house sit there and burn, and stand there and say, oh, I don't have enough people to go in and put it out, and so, I mean, we're rolling the dice there, and unfortunately, we come out ahead most of the time. And so, what folks don't understand is, one, a lot of folks, unless you've lived somewhere with quality fire protection, you actually don't know what quality fire protection looks like.
Yeah.
You think you have quality fire protection because all the firefighters come when you call 911, and they're all heroes, right? Because, they're firefighters.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, everybody's a big hero. And the reality is that, none of our departments in this county have the staffing that they need, I don't think a single fire chief in this county would sit here and say, oh, yeah, I've got all the people I need. I don't need any more, And so.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So when I was a deputy, and I know it's different now. There's more of them, and so this is not a reflection at all on how they do any of this stuff. But I can remember vividly when I first started especially, I worked midnight shift. And this county's pretty big, right?
It is.
In the whole county, there would be 2 of us. Mm-hmm. 2 deputies for the entire county. And I was thinking, man, if I was a criminal and I knew this, all you got to know is and we had to stay. A lot of times we would stay, if it was just 2 of us, we'd stay literally in the center, right, because we would try to go together where we were going and respond north or south. But that was it.
Yeah.
And I know it's better now, but still the population's higher. And I'm sure there was a staffing issue then. I know there was a staffing issue. And then the other issue is, you guys are volunteers, and I mean, you sound like you're smart. Not to knock any firefighters I know, but you sound like the smartest firefighter I've ever talked to. So
that'll ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, no, but you definitely sound like you know what you're talking about, and you're pretty articulate too, which is good. But anyway, you got me distracted by how nice you are. I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, I know that they still need people, and
Absolutely.
That's what I was going to say is the salaries. Is they don't want to pay them. They want a tax hike, whether it be for public safety or specifically to fire departments or whatever, and they want to fuss about the officers they get or the firefighters they get, and yet they don't want to pay them. They don't want to give them a living wage where we don't lose. I know when I was a deputy, part of the problem, and I think Poncho and now Shannon is Sheriff Beasley has now done a good job trying to get them more money. But we had a problem when I was a deputy where they would go to Shelby County. You'd get them through, they get certified. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, they're not only not volunteers and not full-time with you, they're going full-time with a department that'll pay them more money.
Sure.
So if you want to keep good, qualified officers, you've got to provide funding. Everybody says that, but then, like you say, I also understand that, like, the executives that are trying to make the decisions on these budgets, it's a decision that I'm glad I don't have to make, because you got everybody yelling for the money. The teachers want the money. The road people want the money. The fire, everybody's wanting some money, a little money, all over the place. So I can only imagine. My statements are more for the public.
Sure.
In that it's easy to whine and say you want this, that, or the other, quality fire, quality police, quality schools, and all that. Well, the money has to come from somewhere.
It does, and it's how much are you willing to pay for?
Yeah.
What level of fire protection, what level of law enforcement, what level of EMS are you willing to pay for? Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. During that same time period you were talking about, just having a couple of deputies in the whole county, you only had 2 ambulances in the whole county.
Yeah.
They had a third one that, if they could maybe, get somebody to answer the phone that they might could put in service,
Yeah.
But, that was, and you think about that now, with currently, there's 5 to 6, and occasionally it's been a 7th one, but I think it's broken at the moment. Last I heard, they're having some maintenance issues, with the ambulance service. It's not a knock against an ambulance service. For those that don't know, our ambulance service runs. Okay, there are folks that come from Shelby County, Memphis, not necessarily the fire departments, but the private ambulance side, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to come work out here in Tipton County because it's small, quiet, rural community." Our ambulances run all day. You think about in the big city of Memphis, okay, you come in, shift change, you drop your stuff off, you don't see the fire station again until, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. That happens here in Tipton County too, because, we do have, just a limited number of ambulances. It's better than 2. It's better than when it was 3, and it's better than when it was 4, but, 6 ambulances get eat up pretty quick too, especially when they have to do interfacility transfers as well. And so, with that, like everywhere else, fire departments are struggling to hire people. Ambulance services are struggling to hire people. Law enforcement struggling to hire people. So it's not even just on the volunteer side where we're struggling to get quality people. Even on the career side, when I joined the fire service in 2000, like the full-time firefighting job, that was like the dream. Back then, Memphis Fire Department would have an opening, for recruits, and they would get thousands of applicants, for 40, 50 jobs, even around here local, in some of the smaller departments, they would get hundreds of applicants for 1 or 2 jobs, and now, there's several departments in the area that have been lucky to get a handful of candidates for 1 opening, and so then you hope out of that handful of candidates that there's somebody quality that stands out, but it's not, so, everybody's hurting for people. And so then, that's where it has to be enticing for them to do it, whatever that may be, okay, on the paid side, whether that's salary and benefits, on the volunteer side, whether it's just, the fun and the action, but then once you get them in and you get the quality, emphasis on quality, once you get the quality in, then you got to keep them.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not always just about pay and benefits in comparison to other agencies. It's oftentimes about the culture within.
Well, I was just thinking to say what you touched on earlier. It can a lot of times be leadership.
Yes.
If you want people to be loyal, sometimes people do value things other than the paycheck, but they are also not going to stay if they're getting disrespected or not being lifted up, by leadership, or don't have strong leadership to follow.
And I emphasize the quality. And when I teach, I talk about quality over quantity. All right, there's a lot of volunteer fire departments out there that get obsessed about how many people do they have on their roster. Like that's some sort of bragging or talking point or whatever. Oh, I got 20 people. I got 30 people on my roster. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. How many of them show up?
Yeah.
Because, on average, you got X number on the roster, maybe 50, 60% consistently show up. And of that 50, 60%, maybe 50% of that are the go-getters that kind of carry the load, And so if you got 25 people on a roster, but nobody shows up in the middle of the night when the tones go off, what do you really have?
Yeah.
And so firefighting is not for everybody. Law enforcement's not for everybody. EMS is not for everybody. So the term that I like to use, it's a little kinder, a little gentler. Sometimes you have to manage people off the team, okay? Not everybody brings a positive to the culture of the organization, okay? Not everybody's in it for the right reasons. And so sometimes we look at it, oh, well, you've had 2 or 3 people, quit, okay? The 2 or 3 people that quit haven't really contributed very much, so like, what did we lose? Everybody else is still carrying the load before, they're carrying the load after, and so being willing to accept that, and say, look, I don't just want people to show up. I want quality people to show up. I want people that want to be part of a high-performing team. I want people that are dedicated, that are honest, that have the integrity, all right, and the willingness to learn. Not, I just want to drive a big red truck and blow the siren, okay? Which, I get it. Hey, 18-year-old kid, they come in, that's great. You're going to get to ride in the big red truck. We're going to blow the siren.
They want to be in the calendar. They want to be in the firefighter calendar.
But hopefully, somewhere along the line, we move from, the wow factor into the what we really do here, which is the service to the community.
Yeah, one thing I was going to mention that you said that, and this may actually help with folks, maybe to direct them to you guys to do some volunteering, is that in the rural counties, you mentioned earlier about how people would leave from maybe Memphis to come here and think, oh, it's going to be easy going. When I was a deputy, we dealt with more variety and more per capita than they did in Memphis.
Sure.
Like as an example, back when I was a deputy, if there was a DUI, the one officer would stop the vehicle, make whatever their initial investigation was on the DUI stop, and then there was another officer that came maybe to do field sobriety test, and then they had a separate truck that came to do the blood draw or whatever they were going to do. When I was a deputy, we did everything.
Right.
Like I remember doing fingerprints. Like it was experience that I would not have gotten at a bigger agency, and I know firefighting was the same way. Like you said, you're jack of all trades to some degree. So my point was, if they come to a department like yours to volunteer, I think they can get experience that can make them even more valuable to another agency because you're getting to do everything.
And that's absolutely true. We don't have a dedicated companies. You're not on an engine company, you're not on a ladder company, you're not on a rescue company. Like everybody kind of, you got to know everything.
Yeah.
When you show up, who's going to get there first? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is the truck going to roll out with 2 people? Is it going to roll out with 4 people? You might be on the engine the last time. You may be bringing the tanker the next time. And so your roles and responsibilities, like you do kind of get to do a little bit of everything. And it was kind of interesting. So I had a New York City firefighter explain this to me one time, FDNY guy, because that's who everybody looks up to. It's the largest department in North America. Go to more calls. They do it's crazy. All right, I think they have. It's like 11 or 12,000 uniformed firefighters. That's not counting chiefs. Then chief officers is like another like 1,100 or something. It's crazy. It's they have more firefighters than the largest city in.
Yeah.
But he told me, he said, like, with that they're very specialized. He says as an engine company officer, he has one job. He shows up. If he's first in, because they do everything by what order you show up in. If he's first in, he has one job. And that is to get the attack line from the pumper to the fire. That's it. That's all he has to worry about. Mm-hmm. And when he goes through his 1 cylinder of air on his back, he's done. Mm-hmm. He can count on one hand in over 20 years the number of times he's had to put another cylinder on and go to work. Mm-hmm. And so you come out here in the rural environment, okay, and I can count a number of times where we've gone through 3 and 4 cylinders, in my younger days. Mm-hmm. I'm a one and done guy now, but in my younger days, 3 and 4 cylinders, because that's just what had to be done. Mm-hmm. There was no one else to call. We are getting better, across the county, with calling more help on the front end, being willing to call for additional help as things progress. But it's still like you're gonna do more than typically just one job, when you show up. And so you don't go to as many fires, but you're going to get a plethora of experience usually on the fires that you do go to. And same thing with the wrecks and, the EMS calls and what have you.
So if somebody, we start tying this up a little bit because we got to go to trivia. If somebody, I told Josh that I knew from my limited experience with you at the restaurant that you and I'd be able to talk a lot, and I almost brought some bourbon in here, but I was afraid I wouldn't make it to the trivia. If people wanted to reach out to you to get more information on joining the department, what could they do? How do they get a hold of you?
So the easiest way is our Facebook page, Gilt Edge Volunteer Fire Department on Facebook. Just throw that in there. It pops right up. Pretty much every post that I do, if you click on it, it's kind of funny when we started doing it because we incorporate the message button. So you actually, if you just want to look at the picture, you actually have to click on it twice. You click on it the first time, it takes you automatically to a message. And just reach out to us. Just reach out, tell us you're interested in joining. We're pretty responsive on that. Myself and a couple others, get direct notifications to our phone whenever somebody sends a message to the page. The other thing, the easiest thing to do too, if you know where the station is at the intersection of Munford Gilt Edge and Highway 59, the street address is 9149 Munford Gilt Edge Road. Every Monday night at 6:30. We're doing training, unless Christmas, falls right there. That's kind of about the only time. Maybe Easter, but generally every Monday.
Yeah.
Unless a special holiday falls on that Monday,
yeah.
you can find us at the station every Monday night at 6:30. Come on in, tell us who you are. We'll show you around. Be glad to have you. Check it out and see if it's something that you want to do. So.
Nice. Well, I appreciate your service, man, and I appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us about it.
Yeah.
I would never be a volunteer firefighter or any kind of firefighter. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I told you I got my first dose of it going in that little house. Lots of respect to you guys. So, a very vital, important part of the community. And like you said, you're the white hat, so it's kind of good.
Well, it's a little better when you have face mask on. You bring your own air.
Yeah,
makes it a little easier.
I know, but still, I didn't want nothing to do with it. So, well, thanks for coming on, Chief Fletcher. And I have a lot of respect for your wife. You know this, and now I see y'all are like a power couple together. So that's good.
Yes.
And thanks everybody for watching today. Well, another Law Talk. Remember to always like, follow, subscribe to the content. We're on all social media platforms, podcast platforms, Facebook, YouTube, wherever, TikTok, all this kind of stuff. The TikTok, of course, you can go check out because Josh likes to do all the dances over there.
All the dances.
Josh, you going to be a firefighter?
Probably not, but I respect it.
Yeah. Then NA the band, local guys. Inside My Head is their album. It's available for free. Just download it. You go to wherever you listen to music, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. That would really help those guys out. And it's NA the band, no spaces. And Michelle Allen, who's probably still watching, she's like our biggest fan and supporter. We need to do like a Michelle Allen cheerleading section or something around here. Anyway, Michelle Allen's your go-to in the area for buying, selling, renting, leasing real estate. And she's also a good person, so check her out. Mason's Martial Arts. Mason's High Octane Martial Arts been in Covington since '93. Just visit masonsmartialarts.com. We have 30 years anniversary specials going on right now. The Cellar Restaurant at Prohibition Bar is located right here in Covington. I will be there in just a minute. We have trivia every Tuesday. Wednesday nights is Wine Down, Whiskey Up Wednesdays with wine and whiskey discounts. Thursdays, Ladies Night. Friday, Saturday, we have music. Sunday, we're fixing to start cornhole tournaments. So a lot of fun. Just visit us at the Cellar. And then Josh will be glad to help you with your brand, online, email marketing, social media marketing, websites. Just visit masonitemarketing.com. And as always, we hope to be here again live next Tuesday, barring tornadoes, death in the family, dog attacks, whatever. Hopefully we'll be here with another Law Talk, and I hope you guys have a good week. Keep kicking. Thanks for watching, guys. Just remember that this is not legal advice or investment advice or business advice. This is for fun and entertainment purposes only.